In this episode of Discovering Dowsing, we dive into sound and how that can be used for healing ourselves, healing the land, how sound can be used for feeling into energy, and just how magical sound is in the world. And one thing that I've noticed with the shamanic drum is you really tune into the drum. The drum is telling you where the atmospherics of the room are, and that also has a relation to you. And actually, if you listen to how the drum's asking to be played, the drum actually will change over the course of you playing it. So actually, if you're really tuning into the drum, you will change how you play it in that space. And it's because it's warming up, it's because the energy is changing. I generally do it first thing in the morning when I've only just come into the room. So the room is getting a little bit of body warmth into it, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, for me, the shamanic drum really kind of teaches you to tune in to what the drum is telling you about the room and how it's changing as you play. So yeah, I've found the shamanic drum just very interesting teacher in that way.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, as you know, we've just moved and it's the first time I've actually got it out from the but I've been thinking about it. It's been calling me. And I love that you're playing in the morning.
Mm.
It reminds me of a lovely sound healer I met years ago who had a gong. And she taught me about crystals as well, Becky Arthur's lovely woman. And she she played her gong to me one on one in her living room, and it was a Chiron um, planetary gong. Like I think you can get different planets. I don't know everything about this, but sure, sound healers using gongs know much more than I could ever wish to. I just remember Chiron being the wounded healer, and energetically, it's a really nice gong to be played. But she said this similar thing, that it kind of plays itself and you go on a journey with it and it plays itself through you.
Mm.
So you're the channel,
Yeah.
and whatever needs to come through will come through and it will shift what it needs to shift. And she actually drummed my aura, actually, when we were staying down in Dorset together. We had a really nice sort of weekend together. And I'd never had somebody drumming my aura before. And it's really empowering. And it feels like you're more alive. It feels like the drum inside your aura, anything a bit smushy is just done, and just needing just to go or to be composted. And it just feels vibrant. Your energy field feels really alive after being drummed. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
had somebody drum you.
Just drumming in the morning is I'm drumming towards me. The vibration, the main vibration is coming towards me. And
Mm.
just when I stop, there's that immediate fizz in my body,
Mm.
that kind of energetic fizz. And that's such a, for me, that says a lot about the vibration and what it's doing to your cells, how it's activating them, how it's kind of, just helping them to raise their vibration enough that you can actually feel the fizz within. That's kind of the same thing that you're talking about, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It in a way, it just sound healing reminds me of the principles behind Reiki, which is it goes where it needs to go.
Mm.
And you as the healer, let's say a Reiki healer, if you're hands-on, hands-off, doing it remotely, whatever the way you're treating, you can just feel it getting warmer through your hands in certain areas and, more pulsing feelings. And then other things, it feels like nothing's needed. So it feels like kind of neutral, not much here. But you can definitely feel where where it needs to go. And I feel that sound, it shimmers in the cells that need to be shimmered and maybe shake loose something that's held, or release or dissolve or dissipate something that's a bit pinchy or stuck, energetically. And it's amazing. You and I have touched on somatic healing in our chats, just when we're talking together, and there's so much interesting, fascinating, and exciting explorations in terms of how, there's a very famous book called The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk. Not for the faint-hearted. It's quite an intense read, trauma-based stuff. And when I'm doing that internal energy work where we're talking with a part that is maybe, let's say, holding on to a belief that somebody is not good enough, or they can't do this new thing, step out of their comfort zone because they might get knocked back or be laughed at or be criticized, whatever the energy is. When you say, oh, where in the body are you feeling that? They know straight away where it's felt. And then that's like the doorway into what can be conversed with or felt. Like, where is this resistance? Where is this fear held? Where is this anxiety being processed in the body? And when you tune into it, when you have that dialogue, sound is a wonderful carrier, if you like, for beyond words. Going beyond words, you don't need words for everything. You and I met through the ecstatic dance community, and just being able to, with amazing music, and some of which doesn't resonate, but you still dance your way through it, or stand or sit or lie through whatever floats your boat or otherwise. When you're doing a meditation dance with your eyes closed, open, but your body processes what it needs to in the way it does. And by being not so self-conscious because you're in a safe environment, you can you can literally just go, okay, my arm needs to do that, and you don't need to think about where that comes from or what is being released or processed, transmuted. It's just fantastic that these modalities are becoming more and more accessible, and in a way we're reconnecting with, remembering
Yeah.
our folk or ancestral roots. So we all used to dance around the fire. We all used to have drums somewhere or something tub thumping, maybe some, some bells, things that clear, the clarion of the bell, that sort of sound that cuts through, it just clears stuff. The sound of the waves on the beach, that swoosh sound is so nourishing and cleansing. It's like beautiful, brown noise, they call it now, don't they? White noise, brown noise. Brown noise being the nature sounds, white noise being like Hoovers and the TV in between stations.
I thought brown noise was something else. It's there was an experiment done many years ago with a cinema. So this guy had produced a horror movie, and he was playing around with frequencies, and he created this or tuned into a frequency that created certain bodily functions, and called it brown noise because it got to the scary bit. He played this frequency along with the music, and yeah, people had certain accidents.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, frequency is such a powerful thing. And one of the things that I love listening to music.
mm,
Most of it is reproduced through speakers or through headphones. But when you can produce it live or listen to it live, and that's live, it's a bit of a challenge. So if somebody's on a stage playing live music, but it's reproduced through a speaker, then are you actually listening to it live?
mm.
Anyway, that's kind of digressing a little bit. But when you can actually feel the instrument, the vibrations from the instrument, that's so much more impactful. And it's the same with the voice. If you listen to somebody speak live, it's so much more impactful than watching somebody on a YouTube video like this.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that YouTube doesn't have a place or reproduced music doesn't have a place. It does. But if you can listen to a piece of music and maybe drum along to it, the effect on your body is far more kind of impactful than
Mm.
just listening to the piece of music.
Oh,
I think that's really worth kind of remembering.
yeah. Yeah. So there's something about the frequency from the instrument or instrument of the voice or both when you're in the vicinity where those sound waves are from source, let's say, from the source of the instrument or the person's body temple where they're singing whatever they're singing. And it does feel different. You're right. And there's something to be said for that. And like you've been saying with the drumming in the morning when you're starting the day, it's really interesting because you're having that dialogue, inner silent dialogue with the sound. And when you and I were walking the labyrinth in Oxfordshire with the didgeridoo, where we did a pre-walk and almost like pre-clean of the energy, your didgeridoo became a form of a dowsing instrument where sometimes you and the didgeridoo together, I guess, where you sometimes felt a bit like, okay, need some more breath here, need to pause a moment. And also it was it was channeling that energy and it was helping process it. So if we had the equivalent, if we weren't using sound, we may have been using dowsing rod or rods, and it would have maybe be going anti-clockwise to neutralize anything or going clockwise to possibly amplify something that would be a bit more beneficial. And the instrument does the same job. And I'm also remembering something my mother and I have started music lessons together sort of remotely this week. And I mentioned to you, she's got perfect pitch. She's got something called synesthesia, where as a musician, when she plays a chord in a particular key, she sees a particular color. And she's got favorite, I think most people have favorite keys, whether they know it or not, something that sort of resonates with them.
Mm.
And Mum and I were talking about how it's really interesting that in healing, we've both studied with a lovely holistic healer called Savina Miller. We both studied Reiki under her and chakra sort of systems and things, and talking about the sounds that our body naturally has a particular note that it wants to make when we sound our own almost seed sound. You have chakra sounds like o, e, u, for different chakras. And when you're saying, let's say or singing it, if I was to sing that that note feels right in my body for me to sing. It feels yeah, it feels really good. And if you were to do an om sound or just sing a note, you would naturally find the place that feels right in, let's say, the body cavity, almost with the lungs, right? It sort of resonates in a particular way, and it's your note. And it's quite a powerful thing, the voice. It can be really healing. And fellow Dowser was telling me about Hildegard of Bingen. She was around in the 11th century, so year 1000 and something or other. I've read a book on her, and she's an amazing character. She's a very spiritual woman, said some amazing, powerful, guided things where you're just like, wow, that's a real statement and a half. And she was famous for writing music, and it's still played today, 1,000-year-old music. And there's this particular song, which it was either the late 80s or the early 90s. It's that sort of IB3 sound, The Sun is Rising by Beloved. And that's her music.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a link to the song in it. But the purity of the line and where it can take you, or even Gregorian chant, is just beautiful. Mantras, bhajans, just having something high vibe in the background is just gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a rabbit hole when you start talking about frequencies. Just you mentioned Gregorian chants, and they were originally sung in solfeggio scale, which originally was only six notes, six very specific frequencies, which has been extended to 9. But to go back to the voice, there's a woman called Annie Williams who does something, can't remember the name of it. It's finding the missing tone within your voice. So what actually happens is, with your birth chart, you can work out which tones that you should have in your voice. And from that, you then have your voice analysed whilst you're asked specific questions. And from those questions, you can then work out what is the missing frequency from your voice. And then from there, you then get given a piece of music to listen to. And within the music, there's mantras. And so that if you repeat the mantra in that key, then it helps to bring forward that missing part of your voice. Which is a really interesting way of doing it. I mean, your birth chart that's a whole other dowsing subject.
Yes, when you were talking about that with the voice, that was reminding me absolutely of what you've mentioned about birth chart and dowsing the astrological birth chart for what may be harmonized or supported. And yeah, what an amazing topic.
Yeah. We'll have to dive down that one another day. But yeah, it's so interesting what you can tell from a birth chart, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we walk the labyrinth, it's a bit like walking the cosmos, or walking, some people say, the dragon, or walking in the brain. People compare it to a brain.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when you have a point at which where you need to slow down or pause or completely stop. And you and I sort of feel energies in sort of, I'd say, quite complementary ways. You and I could maybe walk in an area and you would pick up something, I would pick up something. Maybe it's just similar, related, that there's just something, because we're used to using our bodies as dowsing instruments, so to speak. We can feel the feels when we're walking through, let's say, a spot where the energies are a bit denser or more compacted or stagnant, or imbalanced in some way. And we can also walk somewhere and like, wow, this feels amazing, this spot. Yay, more of this, please. And it's really interesting on the labyrinth when we walk together with the drumming, with we you were didgeridooing in and we were drumming out. And when you were the way you play a didgeridoo is it's just an amazing process. The sort of the way it's quite primal sounding, isn't it? It's quite
Yeah.
rich and strong, and the vibrations that you feel are not, I wouldn't use the word seismic, but they're kind of, really
Yeah.
stonking.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There's more than one key to a didgeridoo. So it has like a bass key to it, but then it has other keys within it. And when you look at the frequency range of a didgeridoo, it's not just a small range. It's quite a big range. It goes, depends on the didgeridoo, but it can be spread over 1,000 hertz, with peaks and troughs all over,
wow.
which doesn't make sense because when you hear it, it's a very low, bassy kind of sound. But within it, there's other things going on, and that's before you even add in the sounds that you can make with the throat. That's just the drone sound. There is something otherworldly about that instrument, and I'm only really just beginning to learn about music. And even when I play my shamanic drum, I kind of feel like that has several different notes within the sound of that 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 skin. And again, that changes depending on the atmosphere, the energy. It's just it's mind blowing to try and get your head around sound frequency. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I really love it when it's visualized with the somatics, where they put salt or whatever on a maybe on a speaker that's
Yeah,
vibrating and different frequencies and the different patterns. And it just so reminds me of sacred geometry. And you just see those underlying patterns in the music and the frequencies and the waves. And they are a language for us humans. And also singing can draw animals. They love the singing. Just last Sunday I was with Tamar Dowsers. You're nodding and they're like, yeah, I've seen that too. Sort of
yeah. Cows love the didgeridoo.
cows. Oh gosh, yeah, because I was going to mention I was at the Hurlers Stone Circle near Minions on the weekend with Tamar Dowsers, just recently joined, and met some of them. And there was a goddess circle with a sort of World Goddess Day celebration with some lovely people, and we were all standing in a circle doing an invocation, measuring the energy lines before, during, after as well. For some of us, we're outside the circle doing that because the Michael and Mary lines meet and go through the hurlers, as well as another Arthur line. I think it's called. It's also known as Grumpy for some other reason. Just figuring out. But what was really interesting is on this Goddess Day, the singing and the dancing, it grew the Mary line. The Michael line shifted a bit, but the Mary line grew more than double in width while the singing and dancing was going on. We were all, in a circle, sometimes holding hands. And when we were singing this really lovely song, all the cows with their calves walked from quite a distance towards us and were standing watching, and it felt they wanted to sort of benefit from the feelings, and they were standing in this really lovely way, just looking towards us. It was almost like they were with us in spirit and they were joining in the way that was right. And then ponies came towards us as well, and it was just magical. Just so you've noticed that, have you, with the didgeridoo and cows?
Yeah, cows. I mean, cows are naturally inquisitive animals,
Mm.
but they're they just seem to be drawn. Whenever I see a field of cows and I've got my didgeridoo, I will always toot them over, and they'll come running over, and then they're just stood kind of mesmerized at what's going on. I love it. Sheep are very different. Sheep just they won't even entertain the idea. Sheep are very kind of scared animals. They're frightened of their own shadow, but cows aren't. So it's just really interesting how very different they are as animals, and just to recognize that.
Mm, Oh, lovely, lovely. I'm I'm currently, so I've just moved house, got this field, and dowsing a labyrinth in it, and how many circuits it's got. It's turning into a really fascinating exploration because it's not a labyrinth I've ever seen before. It's a combination of a labyrinth with a spiral inside. So there's two centers to it, which is just interesting, strange, and wonderful. Just exploring that and what it symbolizes, what it pertains, if you like. And what I've noticed, I've got two crystal sort of paving slabs made out of onyx, they're proper paving slab thick. And I wondered why I had two for this labyrinth. And it turns out, well, there are two centers, so you need two crystals at the center to stand on. And the dogs, got two dogs, they've been loving it. They've just been sitting, standing on these slabs, and just joining in with me while I'm marking out all the different circuits of the labyrinths and the spiral itself. And yeah, they feel the energies, don't they? They go to what's beneficial for them. And cats are amazing at transmuting stuff that is less beneficial, and it doesn't seem to affect them. They're just
Yeah,
brilliant. So wherever a cat's sitting, it could be something that needs support and yeah, changing, but maybe they're doing the job for us, so we don't need to worry about it.
true, true. they so there was always a saying about geopathic stress. They would say that a farmer would let their pigs roam the land until they made their home. Wherever the pigs made their home was where the farmer would build their house.
Mm.
And it was believed that the pigs just had this natural ability to find good energy, and actually wherever the energy was good, that's where they would settle. So yeah, if you've got some pigs, let them free and find your new home.
That's brilliant. And that reminds me of a story I read years ago about how I think it was in one of the dowsing magazines with the BSD, British Society of Dowsers. But it was so long ago, I couldn't tell you which issue or anything. But it was talking about some cows, and some of them were struggling with health and difficulty getting pregnant. And it turned out a dowser went there and found some signs of geopathic stress. I can't remember whether the recommendation for remedy was to move them or to fix the alignment or the energy underneath them. But whatever was done, whatever the approach taken, it seemed to support. And it's interesting. Animals, sometimes they don't have the choice for where they're sighted. And it can have an impact on health. And it can be the same for us in our homes as well. We don't necessarily always have the time or the space to tune into those energies. We might be just rushing around in our daily lives. And there might be those, let's say, subliminal energies that can have an imbalancing or even serious illness effect, can't there?
Yeah.
It's really amazing how dowsing can help not just healing imbalances and helping us in our environments or our lovely animal friends. It can also help us feel even better than we're already feeling, even if we're feeling great. Dowsing with an instrument, dowsing just on, in our environment, just where's beneficial to stand right now. How can we communicate with the energies here, the spirit of place? How can we find that connection, get that permission to have that connection. Are we welcome here? Are we okay stepping into this, through this threshold of space? Is it okay to touch this tree? Does it wish to be touched? Sometimes the answer is no. And it's good to respect that. Is it okay if I look after you, plant, and maybe do some secateur work with you to help you feel more vibrant? So yeah, there's so many aspects to dowsing that can tell us what's beneficial and what's right and what's supported overall.
Mm. I have a friend he's retired now, but he was a builder, and he would always douse if it was an existing property. He would go through all of the rooms and douse what the room should be used for. If it wasn't an existing property, then he would kind of douse the area to find out, how it should be sited and what was more beneficial. Very, very interesting guy.
Very switched on, really. It's a good. He sounds very switched on, really, because that's a good practice to do. Sort of, tuning into what's right and what feels right, and what the guidance is. Working in harmony with that building, working in harmony with the surrounding area.
Yeah.
So everything's in alignment. This wonderful thing he intuitively did.
Yeah. And going back to working with sound in nature, I was walking with a friend who plays the sax, a guy called didgeridoo, and we had gone out to look at energy. He'd been asking me, I've been picking up on energies while I'm playing instruments, and I want to kind of delve into it a bit deeper. Can we go for a walk somewhere in nature and just kind of pick up on some stuff? And before we'd got maybe 4 minutes walk from the car, I'm like, yep, there. That's where we need to go. And I could feel that the earth energies were out. So we walked into this patch of forest, kind of 10 meters from the main path. And sure enough, there was like a stone circle energy. So a number of vortexes in a circle. And a number of them were out of balance. They weren't kind of flowing properly. But just off of that was some ghosts. So I just got my friend to actually to play the saxophone and feel into the energies, and then feel into how to clear the energies. And he had his certain way of clearing energies, and I've got my certain way. And all I was doing was I was dowsing the energies as he was clearing them to see, what was going on with the energy, see how quickly it cleared and all that kind of stuff. And from that, I could tell him what was going on, and he could understand how he was feeling it. It was kind of like reverse engineering, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did after clearing the ghosts, we went on to clearing the earth energies, the vortexes.
Okay.
And as soon as we stopped, literally there was 30 seconds of rain, and then the sun came out. It was just, like that sign from the universe that, yep, okay, you're done here. And then we played in the center with the didgeridoo and the saxophone, and just the vibrancy of the energy afterwards was just almost tangible. You could just sense it in the whole of your body. It was just so cool, so amazing.
That's wonderful, and that reminds me of something Stuart Dow from Tamar Dowsers was saying to me about having been to a really overgrown stone circle, and just doing some activations, let's say, in it. And just by being there, it kind of re-energizes makes it feel more alive, like you're saying, that vibrancy. And then just by doing that, he's noticed it's drawn people towards it more, or good things have happened as a result to do with that particular site becoming more accessible and managed again. And just by making that conscious connection with that space, it's a bit like when you were talking about the vortexes, it just reminds me of like chakras, the spin of the
Totally.
chakra. And so by singing to that, when I've used a singing bowl, this one here, if I play it, if I just go and then draw it in front of the chakras just a few inches, sometimes it resonates like this one. I can feel most in my throat chakra actually. But it might be on somebody else's chakra, for whatever reason, that particular note. And it can just really benefit and clarify and harmonize and clear. And by doing that in the earth, in the space where we're living, our environment, it's beautiful. And there's probably some inner feedback and benefits that happen within us as well, sort of as above, so below, as within, so without. If we're nourishing our environment, how might that be nourishing us? That's not the reason we do it, but there might be that feedback and that mutual benefit where we're singing, dancing together, feeling great. It's fantastic. Love it. You were saying about you and Diridas were talking about how he was saying about when doing sound healing, where he channels music through the saxophone. He was saying about starting with a higher note.
Yes. Yeah. He was told in Colombia. I can't remember his exact explanation of this guy, but he was in the jungles in Colombia, and this guy said, "Oh, you should never start with a low note. You should always start with a higher note." And it's something that I've kind of noticed with the didgeridoo. If I can start with something like a chime or a cowbell, something that has a higher kind of frequency, if I can start with that, it almost helps to break up the energy a little before starting with the didgeridoo and with that low vibration, although it's got a broad spectrum. I'll give you a snow shovel analogy. If you kind of start with the didgeridoo, what happens is it's like pushing a snow shovel without emptying it. And all that happens is you end up with this big pile of snow and not being able to push it forward anymore. And when you're playing a wind instrument, for me, I really feel it in my body, in my lungs. And it's like it's almost like I can't breathe anymore. And I have to stop. But if you start with that higher frequency, those, whether it's a chime or whatever, just helps to kind of break it up a bit, make it into more manageable chunks. And then what happens when you play the didgeridoo is almost like it's able to blow them away rather than trying to shove it all forward in one block. So it's been really interesting, and I'm still kind of feeling into this method and trying to use that more. But certainly interesting
That's
way of
lovely.
feeling.
That's lovely. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's powerful, isn't it? Because, yeah, if it's really bloody thick and then you're playing with a deep, profound instrument, it's sort of, yeah, I can imagine that
Yeah.
energy.
So
Uh,
the one thing that I've noticed is with the chimes is it really gives you an opportunity to move slowly. So what I generally do is if I'm going to do some group work, I will, before the group show up, I will work with the chimes, with the group energy. And it's kind of like what we were doing with the labyrinth. Before the group turned up, we worked with the group energy in the labyrinth with our drums. We were both there playing our drums. And it's about slowing down, taking time to really feel into the energy with whatever instrument you're using. And like I say, the chimes seem to work really well for me. And just really feel into the energy, and then working with the energy with the sound and whatever method you would normally use to kind of clear energy. So for me, I work with the archangels. So I'm working with the chimes and the archangels, asking the archangels to clear whatever energies I can feel as I work around using those chimes before the group turn up. And then I can just work with the didgeridoo or whatever instrument it is that I want to work with that group energy. And yeah, maybe there's over time I will develop that and change it slightly and work with it differently. But at the moment, that's kind of what's working for me.
That's wonderful. And that reminds me of when I came across sacred space clearing, because in a way you're doing that advanced work to harmonize the group, balance, the energies, and make everyone feel comfortable, safe, on arrival, everything's, elevated. And I remember coming across a writer and a sacred space clearer called Karen Kingston, and she's written some wonderful books. She's really passionate about how to create the environment by doing a sacred ceremony. It can really, really elevate. And she lived for many years in Bali and talks about how amazing even a daily ritual of sweeping the threshold of the door or, to your house, just consciously, how it can really cleanse and clear. And she was the person that first mentioned tincture bells. So I have actually got some tincture bells. So if people haven't tried with that, these are the sort of very light and clear bells that you can play to clear space. And you can also use singing bowls, but to your point and Duridas's point about starting high, these bells are two brass bells, and they're joined together by a leather sort of rope, and you can touch them together, kiss them together almost, and then they kind of spin. And I've used tincture bells actually as dowsing pendulums while I'm playing them. And so I'll just let them go together now. And the sound's fading now, but I noticed that the tincture bells can move in different directions and they can be harmonizing the space, so you can go around in a room and elevate, clear the space. It's a very clearing, light, bright sound. And sometimes when it's maybe a bit denser, the energy, it will be a damper sound until maybe you need to do it 1, 2, 3 times until they sound crisp again. It's infinite, isn't it? Like astrology is infinite. Every day is a different day, and the patterns and the sounds that we can use in conjunction with our dowsing skills and interests are really magical. And sorry.
I think going back to like the beginning, it's also about that listening to intuition, which is a very deep part of dowsing. As I was saying with the shamanic drum, listening to the BPM that it wants to be played at, listening to whereabouts in the drum it wants to be played at. And I've got it's heavy, a steel tongue drum. Now, it's all the keys are designed so that you can play them in any order. I don't know if you could hear that.
I did hear most of it.
Yeah. So it's quite an intuitive instrument because you can kind of play it in whatever order you want, and it still sounds all right. I've not played this one for a long time. yeah, it's an amazing instrument, and it's the same as the hand pan, the hang drum. That you can play in any order as well,
Lovely.
and they're specifically designed that you can just play any note on the drum. So it really allows you to feel into what to play. And yeah, sometimes for me with musical instruments, I've got too caught up on the idea about what it is I feel that other people want to hear, rather than what is it that sounds best in that moment. And yeah, it's something that I've had to work on a lot, especially playing the didgeridoo, because the didgeridoo is that drone sound. And if you allow your ego to kind of get too caught up in it, you're like, wow, I need to make a kind of a beat sound with it, or I need to bring in my voice so that there's some kind of change within the sound of it. But actually, if you just really work with the intricate sounds of just changing the shape of your mouth, moving your tongue, then it becomes very, very subtle. And it's just a drone sound with these subtle sounds. That's where the magic is. That's where it really calms the mind and really just brings you down and grounds you. And wow, so magical. So yes, intuition is really important.
Yeah. And also, like you've just said, noticing when ego comes in,
Yeah.
and witnessing it without judgment and letting it pass. And
Yeah.
just that need for, you know, receptivity or admiration, appreciation, just say, there, little one. Got this.
I see you.
Little me, hello.
Yeah.
Or I'd say the sort of surreptitious one is spiritual ego, where you think you're making a change because of how wonderfully you're playing this instrument or holding space or whatever you're doing. But actually, just get out of your own way if you can. Just let the good stuff come through you. It's not you, it's coming through you when it's really good. So, it's just honoring that, isn't it? And just gently, accepting and understanding and setting aside of that need for affirmation and applause.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen David Premal, who is a very spiritual and gifted singer. She's got a lovely, rich, and deep voice and sings beautiful mantras. And she's with somebody called Mitten, and they go around touring. And I've been to a concert of theirs in London, and I think it was the Union Chapel. It's a lovely space wherever we were, whichever place it was. And the intention she sets before the concert begins, she says, at the end, please do not applaud, just be. And can you imagine how it feels at the end when she completes, and then the beautiful sounds gently subside, and then there's silence with an auditorium and an audience of hundreds and hundreds of people. It's a very rare and special thing, but the intention makes it much more powerful. And I just was full of awe at the space she created with the silence after the sounds, the beautiful sounds. She grew up in her mother's womb listening to her mother sing mantras.
Okay. Wow.
And how lovely would that be? That singing, and it's just really beautiful energies that come with mantras.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this sound aspect is just really, really beautiful. And it feels co-creating. We've touched in our Avebury episode on the idea of a sound with the henge and the sort of banks, creating a sort of spiritually quiet place maybe inside, or something to hold sound in a particular way. I was talking with Stuart Dow about King Arthur's Hall on Bodmin Moor, which has a similar embanked space, and it was holding water, and there was a spring there, and it's in a rectangular shape, but very much based on sacred geometry, megalithic yards, and so on. And I was wondering with him, could, like Avebury, with that sense of creating that sacred space, could there be something with sound? Surely our ancient brethren had singing. They may have had sort of some kind of metallic, maybe the Bronze Age, something that could resonate and shimmer sound. Drumming, at least, with hides, that's been since the dawn of time, surely, in some way.
Water actually speeds up the speed of sound. So it doubles the speed of sound.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, so to play instruments around water, you're actually accelerating that sound, and sound will travel, on a misty morning. You might be able to hear things that are further away. Ooh. It can be a little bit disorientating. Yeah. But also, you were talking about ancient people playing instruments. This is like a version of a clapstick. So it is actually a piece of cherry. The blonde part of it here is where the wood hadn't died when it was cut down. And this is actually where the wood had died. But it's a clapstick. So, a clapstick, you just need 2 wooden sticks. It's such a simple instrument. And if you were to hear that and to just notice how that would travel across water, it would go for miles. It would be amazing. So yeah, there is one person I've met, and I don't have their details. They mentioned that they were doing sound baths in a swimming pool. So people would be laid on lilos or in the water, and they would be doing the sound bath. And her husband actually played the didgeridoo. I'd love to find, like, she's in kind of Hampshire area.
I'm in for that. That sounds great.
So I need to try and find, like, where she is and go to one of her sound baths, because that would be so cool. It's something that's always kind of sat in my mind of, that'd be such an amazing thing to do. And I was talking to somebody else at the weekend, a woman called Laura, and she was saying she has lots of beautiful crystal bowls, like clear quartz crystal bowls, and they look absolutely amazing. But she was saying that what she often does is she puts water inside them and then plays the crystal bowls, and then drinks the water and feeds the water to her dogs. It's just like, wow, yeah, that's such a cool way of, it's going back to Emoto's work on water and how we can affect water with sound and thoughts. And it's just
that's fascinating you bring that up, actually. Masaru Emoto and the hidden messages, or secret messages in water, I think they're called, and Jade Austen as well, carrying on with beautiful explorations and research into that space. And that reminds me of the sound essences I work with. So Evelyn Mulder in Canada, who's a dowser and kinesiologist, she developed the sound essences, which are sound healing in a bottle. And she developed them after experiencing a sound bath with a gong and crystal singing bowls. And that was in the 90s. And she wondered, how can more people experience how wonderful her cells did a happy dance, is the way she described it. She wanted more people to experience it. And she asked her mentor at the time that she was studying under, how can I wonder if it's possible to bottle sound? I want more people to experience that. And she was told, well, Evelyn, I don't know. Why don't you go and find out? And sound essences were born. And maybe actually, I'm just looking at one of them. I'm just gonna gather it here. This is water. and it's a meridian level sound essence, and it's to help support fear, anxiety, and opening space for enlightenment. So with this, it's gone into a bowl keeper's crystal singing bowl, and there's been homeopathy in there, and essential oils, and so when it's been programmed, I'm just going to mist the space with permission, receive it if you're open to receiving this, and if you're not interested, just say no thanks, not for me, and it won't go to you. It's sound vibration. You shake it up to activate it, mist in your aura 3 times, and then send it out to those that wish to receive this balancing, nourishing energy, noticing what you notice. Some people feel a mist, gentle mist. Some people smell a smell. Some people
I could smell it.
Yeah.
Just a faint whiff. It was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, depending on your sensory world, you'll pick it up in the way that's right for you. And there's so much possibility, isn't there? It's limitless, and these sound essences go up currently to the 5th dimension with archangels, and so it goes meridians, chakras, and also the auric field, aura harmonizers, and then the heart tones with the toroidal field around the heart, that donut shape with the figure of 8 in 3D. And Evelyn's working on 6th and 7th dimensions with ascended masters and other off-world sort of energies. So I'm fascinated to see where it will go. And it's that ladder of ascension. There's no end. We can keep climbing. and isn't it wonderful to be in this space where we can feel those beneficial feelings from the vibration of sound in whatever form it takes, and use our bodies and the instrument that we're playing with, whether it's the shamanic drum, or whether it's a flute, or whether it's a singing bowl, or tincture bells, or the voice, and it can help harmonize, balance, and we can feel those feelings through our body system, our energy field, and we can improve earth energy by co-creating with it, being in a space, feeling called to make a particular sound, and like you and Das were doing with the energies that you found. And it's just such a privilege and honor, isn't it, to explore and expand our consciousness in this way, through the art of dowsing and also sound. It's a very lovely fellowship, it feels like.
Yeah. So I have a question. So if somebody new to sound and new to dowsing was wanting to give something a go, what would be the advice that we could give them about just working with sound and working with feeling energy? Just kind of.
That's a great point. And what I would be thinking is, but for me, I found tincture bells a really great access point. That and the singing bowls I got, but with the first sort of, let's say, sacred sound or sort of nice frequency sound making. And you've bought tuning forks, and when you're using them in the energy field or in a space where maybe it's, you can feel it in your hand, can't you? You're holding the instrument, and it doesn't require any, let's say, ability to play a wind instrument or, whatever. It might be an interesting conduit for somebody using dowsing rods to hold a tuning fork. I know several dowsers that work with tuning forks energetically for sacred space or energy line work. What are your thoughts? Because you're very experienced with tuning forks, and it's kind of where you started some of your sound journey, right? Is that
So
how you expanded into it?
Yeah, definitely. that's how I started to feel sound, or to feel energy with sound. Sorry,
Yeah.
and to use for me to use a tuning fork. This is a very specific weighted tuning fork. It's the heart chakra, and once it's been struck, to then try and move it through the energy, and in moving it through the energy whilst it's vibrating, for me, it feels like I can feel the density of energy with the tuning fork. So I will feel resistance or lightness. And in feeling that, then I can feel it within my body. It's like I'm guided to feel it within my body. And that's, where there's a blockage. And sometimes I will get words. It's actually helped me with my intuition quite a lot, using tuning forks. So for me, that was where I started with sound and energy, and that really, for me, it's amazing.
That's lovely. Yeah, and maybe we can put a link to where you sourced your tuning fork from. We can put a link to.
I'm laughing because the story of how I got those tuning forks was I was in a random part of the southeast of France, looked up at the closest guy who was selling tuning forks, and it was this French guy. And so I'm gonna tell you the company that they come from.
Brilliant. Not going to some part of France and finding the local random person holding a tuning fork.
Yeah.
I love that. Also, the voice.
Yes.
The chakra sounds, singing them, making those seed sounds for each chakra. And I'll make a note to sort of share them in show notes. Because if you make an E sound to do with a particular chakra, R, how does it feel when you make that sound? And does it feel like it's at all constrained? Did the throat sort of vocal cords feel tight in any way? How do they feel? And how does it feel in your body where you're consciously connecting with the sound of that chakra and making that tony sound? It can be very healing. You touched on the parts of the voice where, if we sung a scale of let's say 2 octaves, and if we went middle C all the way through, maybe even chromatically, so every semitone, if we can get that, I'm sure that could be found on the internet somewhere, and see, is your voice wobbling on any particular note? What note is it? And is there a singing bowl note, let's say E or G sharp, that's associated with a particular chakra, typically? And what might that mean for you? Singing to your pets, if you have them. Singing in your garden, if you have an outside space. Singing in the park, if you don't.
So there's two interesting things about singing. So, I live by myself. I work a lot by myself. So I don't always use my voice. And I actually found that practicing musical scales was one way of actually, excuse me, of actually activating my voice. I think I need to do it more.
Yes, it's reminding you with that needing
to
come on,
that's it.
Sing
I
it
need
again.
to do it more. I really struggled to get 2 octaves. I could kind of do quite comfortably an octave and a half, but going slightly higher and trying to get the higher octaves of the second octave just struggled. The second thing about sound, you producing sound and doing mantras, is breath. You're breathing as well. So you're sounding and breathing. You're oxygenating your blood whilst you're whilst you're vibrating your cells. And
Yeah.
that's like such a powerful thing to be doing, is those two vibrating and oxygenating. So yeah, very powerful practice.
I love that. Yeah. And mantras, um, there are certain mantras that resonate, aren't there? And certain ones maybe in Sanskrit, or maybe I find the mantras that accompany Kundalini yoga, the sort of that type of mantra, like Ma. It's really, really simple and beautiful, and it just clears your aura naturally and protects it and burnishes it somehow. And Satanama. Um, and also it's interesting with the Kundalini yoga practice using Satanama. You can whisper it or just say it internally as well as saying it out loud, and just notice what you notice with that. I was thinking, David, while you were talking about different octaves and you know just how singing and how you're able to do that, and what you're noticing. Humming, I find so comforting, and that hum reminds me of the drum, and maybe people might be interested in a shamanic drum to intuitively choose, either with dowsing or how it sounds. Work with somebody who has part of the making process as sacred and a shamanic sort of traditional sense. And we found ours. We'll put a link to where we got ours from. Heron drums, lovely, lovely feeling to the drum. Yeah, so humming and drumming feels nice to sort of suggest as well, because it's like home. These drums are known as a heart drum as well. You play it near your heart, and it's an extension of you, and you're integrating with it and the beat of the heart with the breath that you were talking about. And then humming. I like that. I'm going to try that after this.
Yeah, I was trying that the other day in West Kennet Longbarrow. I forgot that I did it actually. I can't remember whether I was humming or singing. It was one or the other, but yeah, it just felt so good. So good.
Yeah, so finding a mantra that means something to you, that feels good. Om is a really great starting one, because it can take you places that, original sound of Om, different ways of saying it. Om, it's quite a long sound, and
yeah, you can do it AUM as well.
Yeah.
Or yeah, which is, some people say it's the original one, but it's the feeling to which feels better.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. And that's a good tenet for life in general, whether it's our dowsing aspect to our life, or choosing food we're eating, or what music to listen to. Just what feels right to you. Don't have to worry about what you think you should like or you should be doing. The should word is kind of, no, never use that one. What could I use? What feels right to me? Does it resonate? There we are. That resonant frequency. Does this vibrate with my frequency? Does it resonate with me? Does it feel right? And if it doesn't, it's not for you. No judgment. You may not want to play a singing bowl or a tingsha. You may just want to play beautiful bamboo flute. Toot the flute. Brilliant. Love it. How's your flute playing going? Have you got acquainted with your new instrument?
It's getting better. I haven't been so I bought a flute about 2.5 months ago, having never played the flute. And yeah, I've just been playing it for 2 to 5 minutes. At the beginning, it was every day. For the last kind of 2 weeks, it's been like every other day. Some days I pick it up, I'm just like straight into it, and other days it's like takes me a little while. But yeah, it's sounding better. I think what would take me to the next level is having somebody to kind of guide me and go, okay, this is how you can improve here or improve there. So I think that's the next layer when I get round to it, but have other ideas of like buying an acoustic electro bass guitar. So just there's something, you know, my parents had a guitar in the house and a piano in the house, neither of which ever really got played, and they didn't really like us touching them. But I always remember like the metal strings on the acoustic guitar, just plucking them and listening to the whole of the resonance. Just was like, wow. So yeah, at some point, I think that's my winter project, to learn how to play the acoustic bass guitar.
Oh, that's lovely. And I'm hoping to get connected with a beautiful bamboo flute.
Oh, amazing.
You know, those really lovely flutes that can take you away. They feel very like you're carried along on the wind.
Yeah.
So if anyone listening has a recommendation for where to source a wonderful heart-based bamboo flute, love to know in the comments. Thank you in advance. Yay. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I certainly have. You know, I love talking with you, David. It's just such fun. It always goes on this lovely journey, and it's very gentle and meaningful and bright and light and profound at the same time. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you also, Alex, for sharing this space with me and everybody else. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Wonderful.